Quantum Creators Exchange presents Beyond Suffering with Emma Stow and Jeffrey Wilson. Healers are spiritual warriors who have found the courage to defeat the darkness of their soul, awaken and rise from the depths of their deepest fears, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, born with a wisdom and a strength that creates a light that shines bright enough to help encourage and inspire others out of their own darkness. In our last exchange, Jeffrey Wilson discussed his personal journey of healing and his work as a vibrational healer. This conversation was so inspiring, we decided to follow up with a discussion between Emma and Jeff to go even deeper into healing. This is a journey from struggle to living as a creator, and this is why it matters in the world right now. Jeffrey practices a healing modality based on new discoveries regarding the body's subtle energies known as vibrational healing. This modality has been proven to be successful in thousands of clinical cases and applies to every physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual issue. It works by eliminating the underlying cause of symptoms and to remove the energetic blockages in the body, mind, and energy field complex. Emma is an astrologer, healer, and author of the book Revolution of Being, and known for her international work and her retreats. Her focus is on love, healing, soul connection as a catalyst for personal and global change. She offers talks, workshops, and one-on-one sessions. She has held retreats for over 10 years in the UK and the US, and also has completed 2 speaking tours in the US, as well as online Living Soul courses. She is also a poet and a singer. I would like to open up this exchange by welcoming each and every one of you.
Oh, thank you so much, Beth. Thanks for that beautiful introduction and for inviting me back on Quantum Creators Exchange. And I'm so excited to talk to Jeffrey today. So good to see you again, Jeffrey, and welcome to everybody who's listening. Just such a remarkable time on the planet, and I feel it really is, for those of us who've been in this field a long time, it's been sometimes quite a solitary journey, and I think it's a wonderful time to come together right now and share our ideas and experiences and visions and pull it and come together. So welcome everyone to this. We'll just hope that this is an inspiring and healing space for you. So good to see you again, Jeffrey. I was so inspired by your talk that I was talking to Beth, and we decided it would be great just to have a follow-up so we could go a little deeper on the points that you made last time.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So the first, the title of this is Beyond Suffering, and which was really the essence of a lot of what your talk was about. And I think what I loved about your talk was also your approach is so clean that it's really literally about supporting this journey to wholeness and getting people out there. And I found that just really refreshing. It's not like, as you said about the Church of Jeff, it's about just this clarity about your mission and how you approach it. So that really inspired me and really spoke to me. So yeah, just wanted to go a bit deeper into this subject so that people can know that there is a life for them that is beyond suffering, because I think a lot of people just accept that life is suffering, and there's actually quite a lot of philosophies that confirm that. So you articulated it so well, this journey from what you called a contrived reality and a consensus reality to an appropriate reality. So and also that if you're living a life of suffering, something is not right and something can be done. So I'd love it if you could just talk a bit more about this journey from struggle to actually living as a creator, and how that is available to everybody, not just a few people, but to everybody. And also if you could talk a bit about how struggle is still involved in being a creator when we get to that place.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. Very perceptive. You picked up all the right things. So I'm going to start with a quote. I'm going to quote myself. I used to do a workshop called manumission. And manumission is a term that was coined after the Civil War that meant it referred to a process. So rather than release the slaves into society, just say, it's over, go be free. The powers that be were still attempting to control them and hold them. And so they put them through a process, and it was labeled manumission. And it's basically the freeing of a slave. Okay, so that's why I called my workshop manumission. But the quote is I define modern slavery. Okay, so the way to control someone is to steal their mind. You give them false maps of reality, fill their head with subliminal programming, encourage them with false fears, and make them tired and sick. Okay. And modern slavery is indeed that. And our modern world is indeed that. False fears, people are tired and sick. The number one complaint I get from my clients is, I'm so tired. I'm tired all the time. I can't do anything. And there's reasons for that. There's lots of reasons for that at the physical level. But slavery is not about not getting paid or anything like that. Slavery is not having freedom to choose. That's what modern slavery is really about. And if you have a false map of reality, and you already referred to those three realities that I work on. If you have a false map of reality, you have no freedom to choose. You know, it's like the old paradigm. You walk into a voting booth and you get choice A, choice B. They're both terrible choices. You know, neither one of them, any of us really want, but that's all they give us to choose from. That's another version or a subset of slavery. Okay. So the opposite, we are here to become involved. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You're one of those people. Beth is one of those people. Everybody that's on this call is one of those people that decided to come here and participate in the evolution of humanity. So you're basically part of a transition team that you're not aware of yet. Am I heading down the right path for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is that, so, you know, how I see it as well is that people don't know that they have a choice, right? That's the thing.
Yeah. Right.
So that it's more that they don't know that there's an alternative, and that's one of the main things that hold people back, because they simply, and also when this alternative reality is suggested to them, they think it's some kind of utopia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
They think it's not for me. I'm not part of that. That's only a certain class of individual.
Yeah.
Just because you're a spiritual being having a human experience, it's for you. You know, Jesus said, he used to say, heaven is at hand. And I firmly believe that what he meant is heaven is right here, right now. It's not coming. It's not someday, but heaven can be right here, right now. And if you remember in that first session, I said your natural state is being happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive. And if you're all those things, you know who you are. Oh my God, this place is a magnificent experience. A magnificent experience. Nobody should be suffering. Nobody should be suffering. You know, I look at my grandchildren, and every time I hold them or kiss them goodbye, or they call me by my name, it's like that's a little bit of heaven, right? And that's available to everybody. but we walk around thinking that something is missing in us, something's deficient in us, and this is part of that false map of reality. We're also told over and over and over again that we're broken. You know, the psychology tells us, you know, they have thousands of definitions of how we're broken. Everything is a disease. Everything is an affliction. When in reality, some of it can just be a preference. Some of it can just be, it's happening for reasons that we don't know. So let me give you some statistics, okay? This, again, remember, I want to repeat that definition of slavery. The way to control someone is to steal their mind. You give them false maps of reality, fill their head with subliminal programming, encourage them with false fears, make them tired and sick. So this is the new childhood in America. 1 in 3, now I'm talking just children, okay? Adults are even worse. But 1 in 3 are overweight, 1 in 6 has a learning disability, 1 in 9 has asthma, 1 in 10 has ADHD, 1 in 12 has food allergies, 1 in 20 has seizures, 1 in 45 males have autism, 1 in 68 total has autism. 54% or half of all children have a chronic illness or are overweight. 54%. This is the new normal in this world. And it comes from our food supply, which is just burdened with GMO, infected with GMO, chemical, processed foods, et cetera, et cetera. It comes from vaccines that poison children with mercury and toxins that really don't need to be in there. I'm not anti-vaccine, but I'm anti-72 rounds of vaccines before you're the age of 5. That's ridiculous, okay? You never get your own chance for your own immune system to get online. But between the food, the chemicals, the poisons and the toxins in the air, poisons in the water, fluoride is in all the water. Drinking fluoride makes as much sense as going to the beach, drinking suntan lotion or sunblocker and expecting that to protect your skin. Fluoride's for the teeth, not for the whole body. And fluoride hardens the pineal gland and stops the body from communicating to the creator. So that's what I'm talking about when you say make them tired and sick. It's the environment is set up to make us tired and sick. The food supply makes us tired and sick. And then we never get to sit down and reason. We don't have enough energy to even think for ourselves. And then fear. We swim in a world of fear. And fear limits the personality. It limits the growth of the personality. It leads to inhibition. It causes all kinds of problems. It causes that map of reality to be grossly skewed. And then we get so far away. We think we're broken. We think something's missing. We live in an environment that's so unnatural. We've got almost no chance. So.
Because it's like, it's almost like from what I've seen, our way of belonging is participating in that. Because that's the reality that everybody else, well, most people buy into still at this point.
Yep.
So part of the, what I've seen, part of the fear around even attempting to be free from that, because I think people know deep down, they do know deep down that something else is available. But it's also that journey is going to totally change their life. It's going to take them out of their community. It's probably going to lose them their job. It may well lose them their relationship. I mean, it's so radical, isn't it, to take this path of healing? And that's why healing is actually so radical, right? I mean, true healing, you actually supporting a total psychological shift in what we've been raised to believe.
Yeah, and I find that with a lot of people who work with me, as their field gets clearer and clearer and clearer, they see more and more who they really are, and they begin to act differently, be differently, and they get so much pushback from their friends, their family, you know, like, you're so different. What's going on? What's wrong with you? But by then, nobody has ever bowed out and gone, I'm going to go with my friends, because they've tasted who they are at their core, and they see the false reality that they're in, and they want more of it. And they just begin to leave those people behind. Some people just naturally fall away. Some people change their perspective. You know, in my own case, I kind of had that pushback from my own mother, and I love my mother dearly. But she is very deep into the Christian church. And we butted heads a lot over all this as I was growing, changing, moving, shifting in my own personal journey. And of course, I can't walk away from my mother, nor would I ever attempt to. But we have renegotiated our relationship, and we have an understanding of each other now. And that's a beautiful thing too. It really is.
So would you say that renegotiation of relating is a part of this journey to beyond suffering? Because you're going to be all of a sudden very different.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Yeah, very much so. And the other thing I've seen with like married couples, I've worked a lot with married couples, and I'll start with one or the other, with the husband or the wife, and then you begin to see a rift build in their marriage. And so my answer is, we also need to work on your spouse. If you want to stay, they need to get, they need to come into this voluntarily. You can have this conversation. And most people have that conversation with their spouse. I'd say 9 times out of 10, the spouse comes along, does the work, gets the value, and the marriage strengthens and blossoms. That 1 out of 10 time, I have seen several marriages disintegrate and fall apart, and that relationship ends. And it's because as you get your field clear and your level of consciousness increases at every level, you have a different view of reality. Okay. So somebody at the level of 500, which is love, and we can go into more details about that, sees a very different world than somebody at the level of 200, which is courage, or even somebody at love. I've even seen people one is at the level of love and one is at the level of 600, which is peace. And there's even a rift there because they see different worlds. They see a different reality.
So how do we interact, from all these different realities? Because if we're here to be of service, and the ultimate service, I think, as you described it, is to be healthy, happy, and whole, which is our birthright. How do we serve this place? Because the other thing you said I found really interesting was about sacrifice, and I'd love for you to clarify the difference between sacrifice and service.
Well, that's wow, you are very perceptive. Okay, so there is a huge difference between sacrifice and service. Service is being here to help people and assist people, but not to my own detriment. Okay, and sacrifice is what we're taught. We're taught to give it all away, to give, and give until there's nothing left to give. And that goes back to the statement I made. You can't give away what you don't have. If you don't have peace, you can't give away peace. If you don't have love, you can't give away love. So you have to work on those for yourself first. So you have to put yourself first. You have to be very selfish and put yourself first. And then what happens is you can give from the excess. And that's service. Okay. Sacrifice is, okay, I've got only one orange. Here, you take it. Okay. Now, at times that may be appropriate, all right, for your children, for your parents, for your family members, but you need to take care of yourself first at all times.
So sometimes we may have a period of time where we have to give a bit extra than what we've got, but it would be like a limited period of time.
Very limited. And then you rebuild that and then give from the excess.
Okay.
And that's true of love, time, attention. I have a peer of mine that she pointed something out to me. You also have to be careful even when you're in service, because service, if you have the wrong mindset, if you have the wrong belief around that, that leads to servitude. Right. And so like I reached a point when I first started doing sessions, I would work on anybody that asked for help. And sometimes I would hit 50 sessions a week, and I was literally working myself into a trench. You know, I couldn't recover. And she had that talk with me one day. She says, you need to be very careful that you're not giving too much, you know, that you're giving it all away, because you have to have time for yourself. Again, self-care. Self-care is super, super important in this world. And that's also, we're taught that that's, you know, it's not a good thing, you know. So anyway, service and servitude. So fine line.
And how do you gauge it personally with your work? Like, how do you know when that's enough? Or yeah, how do you gauge the line between service and self-care, you know, personally?
Yeah, well, that's why I only work 2 days a week. I work Tuesday and Thursdays. So Tuesday is a work day. Wednesday is just spending time in nature, recovering, doing something that makes me happy. I put what I call my sunshines on my calendar, and my sunshines are those little things that light me up, like spending time with my grandkids, spending time with my beautiful wife, riding my bike, working out. Those things are not negotiable. Not negotiable. So yes, I will help anybody that comes through my door, but it's got to be on a Tuesday or a Thursday. That's it.
Was it initially difficult for you to factor that into your schedule with the kind of work ethic thing, to just go, oh, I'm just going to sit under this tree for a whole day? Or
yeah, it drove me crazy at first.
Yeah, I'd really love you to talk about that, because I know a lot of us struggle with that, because we're so indoctrinated with this work ethic, and that we have to be using like 8 hours a day and to feel good about ourselves, because there's a lot of self-worth tied up in that, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, self-worth for sure. That's another one of those realities of the mind that we're taught. Our self-worth is tied to how much we sacrifice. Our self-worth is tied to how much we work, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, when I was in corporate,
productivity, it's like we're worth as much as we produce, right? Or the outcome of what we,
Right, that's true. That's very true. I had another teacher who was a Native American. His name is Rainbow Eagle, and he was one of the most precious gifts in my life. I've been so blessed to have incredible mentors. And Rainbow Eagle, he's a 100% Native American. He puts on a teaching every year called the Buffalo Prayer Dance, where we gather and we just dance around a circle for 7 days. It goes 7/24. Somebody's always dancing in this circle. But one of the things he taught me was how to meditate while I walk. So when I'm out in nature, I go for a walk every day. When I'm on my walks, I'm literally meditating. Every step on the earth is a meditation. That goes a long way in keeping me calm and keeping me anchored.
Yeah, because you spoke a lot last time about this connection with the Creator, because really we're here to have this relationship, right? And to benefit from that relationship, and all the kind of the trauma, the disconnection, or you know, everything else is depriving us of that very connection, that relationship. So yeah, could you just tell us a bit more in human terms what that connection and that about that connection and that guidance that we each have, because it's unique for all of us as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, everybody is psychic. Okay, that's the first foremost I want you to hear. Everybody is psychic. Everybody is gifted. Everybody is capable of doing what I do. I am not unique. I'm absolutely not unique. The only unique part about me is I study and learn, and I learn fast. And I have the ability, and this is where I was diagnosed with ADD, attention deficit disorder. But that's a bullshit diagnosis as well. What that ADD really is my ability to pay attention and comprehend thousands of things at the same time. Okay. And it's a skill. It is a skill. And if you manage that and tame it, oh my God, the things you can pick up on and see in this world. It is amazing.
Yeah, when you think that a lot of those psychological diagnoses, like even like what is it, bipolar and all of that are often a marked, a rare psychic ability that simply cannot fit into sort of three-dimensional worldview. It can't be packaged. So yeah, would you say that?
I would very much say that. I would say psychiatry in general is now there are a lot of wonderful people in that field, but you got to be very careful not to accept a label randomly, because they don't understand what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, everybody is psychic, and as your field gets clearer and clearer and clearer, more and more of your psychic abilities return. So your ability to see in your mind what's going on, your ability to hear, your ability to feel. I had a really weird thing happen to me about 2 years ago. I was working on a SWAT officer who had been shot in the head in Los Angeles, and they were basically they said, this is it. He's not going to make it. And I'm working on him through his wife, and I began to smell lilacs, and I love lilac bushes, and I'm thinking, is this a childhood memory that's coming back? What is going on? And then I said something to her. I said, oh, wait a minute, he's in a hospital, right? Well, he's in an extended care facility right now because they sent him here basically to die. And I said, is the window open? Do you have lilacs in the room? She says, yeah, the window's open and there's a beautiful lilac bush right out here. And she said, it's filling the room with lilacs. So you have even the ability to have a psychic sense of smell. And I didn't know that was a thing. And it blew my mind when I got off that call. And it's happened several times since now. So I can smell if somebody's burning incense, or if they have a candle, or they just smudge their house or something like that. I pick that up, which is really weird to me anyway. It was wild. But we all have that ability. There is no time, there is no space. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So.
Yeah, so the psychic ability, I mean, a lot of people, because you said you have a choice to close it down, but do you really have a choice to close it down? Because isn't that when the kind of mental health problems start, when we're trying to close it down?
Yeah. Again, that's a great perception. Okay, so in my case, I had to close it down because I was being beaten as a child for sitting there saying the minister's having an affair with so and so, and it just comes out of my mouth, and having conversations with my guides in the backyard. I'd sit there and have conference room meetings underneath the maple tree, and but I was if I had been born today, they'd have put me on meds right away, right? They'd have drugged me out of existence right then. Back in that day, back in the early 60s, they didn't have the psychotropic drugs that they do now. And I flew under the radar. And the only thing I incurred was the wrath of my parents and my school teachers. And I was constantly in trouble at school, constantly, because things would just blurt out of my mouth. So I learned to shut up, be quiet, and play small. I really did. So that was my way of shutting it down. But eventually it'll come out, and it comes out, like you just said, as different diagnoses. Yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing testament of the human soul, isn't it? That whatever happens, the soul is stronger than everything else, right? I think, it's like that saying as well, that you can't avoid your destiny. I mean, would you say that destiny is more powerful than anything else? So whatever you've got thrown at you, I mean, and would you say that the circumstances are equal to the soul experience that needs to be fortified in this, so that you come into your power? I mean, how do you see destiny actually in general?
Well, eventually, so I would say that ties right back into the word suffering. Right? So if you walk around trying to avoid your destiny, if you try to walk around, avoid who you are, you eventually begin to suffer for it. You will pay a price for it. And it'll feel like a nagging feeling, like it eats away at you. You can't put your finger on it. You don't know what it's about, but you're here to play or do something bigger than what you're doing. And you may not even use those words, right? Again, with with prevalence of psychology and psychiatry today, we're real tempted to go and pull out the DSM manual and flip through the pages and find a diagnosis. Oh, there's my problem. Once I got labeled, I'm fine. Now I know why I'm such a, fill in the blank. When in fact, what you're really ignoring is you're a spiritual being having human experience, and you came here to participate in this world. That's the suffering. That's the suffering.
Yeah. So just for us to, because I think everybody knows, and especially everybody on this call will know what it's like to commit to a path that is beyond suffering, or maybe those listening are at the beginning of that. But I'd love for you to talk more about what it is actually like to live from that place. And you did talk about love last time, and I love that you were talking about God's playground and manifesting from the heart and scalar waves. And so yeah, just and you've shared a bit about your personal experience of that in your own life, of prioritizing what brings you fulfillment, what gives you life in your life, being able to do that. But if we could just to anchor it even deeper, to give people an idea, and to remind everybody that life is possible. What is it really like on the other side of suffering? Reporting back live, Jeffrey.
Oh my God almighty. Okay, so let's talk about mission first. Okay, yeah, you've heard everybody's here for a reason. Everybody's here for a purpose. Everybody has a mission. Okay. I think the way it works is when you're on the other side and you're deciding when you're going to come back, you're sitting there deciding, I'm going to have these parents, I'm going to go in at this date, I'm going to live in this area, and then you can put some things on your timeline. So you have a beginning and you have an end to your timeline. And I find quite a lot of variables in people's timelines where some people will lay out the whole thing, every year, that kind of stuff. Some people just lay out the highlights, the beginning, the end, the general geographic area, that kind of stuff. But we all, what I call highly conscious beings, and I would rank anybody 500 or above as highly conscious. 500 is love. I would say all highly conscious beings set up a few particular things. And one of them is experiences, so that they can learn and grow. Like you're going to join this organization, or you may scale Mount Everest or something of that nature. So everybody sets up a few experiences so that they can learn lessons. And then there's another thing that they set up, which is a reason for being here, their purpose, their mission. And that can be starting a mission, that can be creating something, that can be writing the next great American novel or something like that. Whatever it is, whatever they want to experience, that's their choice. But it's some way of being of service and some way of giving back. Okay, so you have this personal journey you go through, and then your mission gets revealed to you. Now, when that happens, that's when everything lights up. You light up. You can't wait to get out of bed. You have unbounding energy. You're that spiritual being having human experience, and you know it. And so nothing can shake you, right? Now, here's how your mission gets revealed. It's not a picture. It's not someday you're hit with a lightning bolt. So you do your work, you do your work, and that little voice in the back of your head, you got to follow that little voice in the back of your head that says, follow this, go here, do that, accomplish this, participate in that group, meet this person. And you do all your work, and then you get the voice again that says, okay, go and learn how to knit Afghans. Now, that seems rather odd. So you go and you become the best Afghan maker you'd ever imagine. And then that little voice comes in and says, that was fun. Why don't you go and try your hand at accounting? And it's like, what? And so you go to the community college and you get an associate's degree in accounting. And you get done with that. And that's a couple years. And that's marvelous, magnificent. And then one day you get that little voice in your head that says, let's go try to cook. Let's learn to be a chef. So you go to culinary school, and that's fun. You do it as a hobby, and your family likes that because you're practicing and making all these wonderful dishes, and you become the best chicken soup maker in the world. Okay. But it's still about you, right? And then one day you walk past a homeless person and your heart goes out to them, and you can feel empathy and you can feel compassion, and you wonder, why on earth does somebody have to sleep in the gutter? And why on earth does not somebody have a way of feeding themselves or get fed every day? And then you meet somebody and you strike this idea, and they've got money to fund you, and you're going to start a shelter. And you start a shelter, and that shelter will serve your chicken soup, right? And that shelter will be funded by people who quilt Afghans or make Afghans. And that accounting degree that you got, you now use to run that as a business. So it becomes not only a profitable enterprise, but something that you can duplicate over and over and over and over. And before you know it, several thousand people are off the street. And then you sit there and you look around, you're sitting at your desk and you look at the accounting and everything, you just look out the window and you go, oh, this feels so good. This is what I was here. This is why I came here. This is why I came here. Thank you, creator of all that is. Your mission gets revealed to you piece by piece by piece. Because if it didn't, it would scare the shit out of you.
I love that. I mean, I love that because I've seen that over and over again, and also experienced it of all these disparate things. And then at one point, it all comes together.
That's right.
And all these different parts of your life come together and work together in this way. And it's just a delightful thing to see when that happens.
When I was in corporate America, I was at the top of my game. I've been out for 6 years. To give you perspective, I still get calls from a recruiter almost every day begging me to come back. And if somebody had walked into my office when I was the director of network services for the world's largest pharmaceutical distributor, I have this big corporate office. You come in here, you sit across the table from me, and you say, Mr. Wilson, someday you're going to be a magnificent energy healer. You will touch thousands, possibly millions of lives and help people to remember who they are and why they came here. I would have called security and kicked your ass out of my office, right? My mind at that time never would have comprehended that vision, right? But I went on my own personal healing journey. I went on my own personal journey to understand who I was and so forth and so on. I took the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step. Even though they didn't seem to join together, even though I couldn't see the whole staircase, I took the next step and the next step. And then the next step was leaving corporate America. And, you know, when I mentioned in the first session where I went on sabbatical for 6 months and started working on people, because I got into this work for me, to work on my own stuff. And then one day I just turn around and here I am, 40 clients 6 years later. And it's like, wow, this is why I came here. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. This is why I came here. Yeah. So it happens exactly that way. Now, if you tell me that, I can understand it. It makes sense. I get how the dots connect. Yeah. Back then when I was sitting in corporate America, if you told me, it would have scared me so much. Even if I believed you, it would have scared me so much, I wouldn't have taken the next step.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know if you've seen this a lot, but there's that saying by Marianne Williamson that people fear their light more than their dark. And there's in my experience, I've seen a lot of people are very fearful of their own empowerment, myself included. I mean, one big part of my own journey has been actually making peace with my own power, my own divine power, my own energy, and just like making that a home. But there's an element of courage to that. And yeah, I just wondered if you'd experienced that.
Well, it's funny you even mentioned that quote. When I first met Beth, I had a house in Grove City, and over the mantle of my fireplace, that quote was painted on the wall. Painted on the wall. It was, yeah, that we do fear our light. Who am I to be powerful and gorgeous and talented and fabulous? Well, who are you not to be? Absolutely, people fear their own power. Are you kidding me? They fear taking responsibility for their own existence. They fear taking their own power. There's this little nagging feeling inside of them. But remember, we were taught that. We're taught that something's missing, something's broken. So, like in the case of the church, for example, what's missing? Well, you have to rely on an outside source for your salvation. You have to rely on an outside source for your salvation. Everything we're taught in this world is that it's outside of us, when in fact, everything we need is inside of us. Every answer, every knowledge we need, every wisdom. When your field gets so clear, this is another thing I've noticed, is you automatically get information like you know things. You just know things. That's another psychic ability, right? So like when I was working with my dad, I think I mentioned that in the first session too, where I had to walk him through these hospitals and fire 28 doctors or 29 doctors. I knew that what I was doing was right. I knew that what the doctor was telling me was not the answer. The authority figure, that's the other thing we're taught, is an acquiesce to authority. Just lay down, and whatever the authority figure tells you, that's the way it is. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. Because that authority figure, first of all, they were educated by somebody who had an agenda. And they too may have an agenda. You know, like, and I'm not knocking doctors. There are a lot of magnificent people in that profession, but they got to make a living too. And sometimes they may have a Porsche payment coming up, and your knee surgery is exactly the amount of money that they need to pay for that Porsche. You know, so be careful of other people's agendas. But you have the ability, if you get right deep down inside and get to the core of who you are, you know the truth. You know it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the real most empowering shifts is that moving from obedience to well, more like being faithful to your own knowing of the truth and your own guidance, right? Which is the transition from being obedient to external authority to being faithful to your own inner authority, which is a greater service anyway. So service isn't about being obedient to external authorities, even spiritual ones, which is a really, I mean, that in itself is a really powerful journey to take.
Yeah, very much so. You know, I tell people quite often, you know, spiritual work doesn't make you a doormat. Right? A lot of people have that feeling like, well, I've got to lay down and just take whatever's handed me or whatever's given me.
Yeah, I mean, it's opposite. I mean, true spiritual work makes you a force of nature, right? I mean, it's like, so it's almost the opposite. It's your wild nature, like as an expression of God and the divine.
Well, true spiritual work, it makes you respond more lovingly to life, but sometimes that response is still no.
Yeah.
No. And it's okay to say no.
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it? Being able to say no, because that's a hugely empowering ability.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. You know, there's, and I go back to the definition of slavery again. Giving you false maps of reality. You never really know who you are. And there is incredible power over any human being as long as they do not know who they are. If you're a human, you can be manipulated and controlled. If you're a spiritual being who happens to be having a human experience, it's a little tougher.
And also the thing about healing is that once you are healthy, happy, and whole. You can't be controlled anymore.
That's right.
And I think through fear.
Right.
And I think for me, that's been the biggest eye-opener to all this. It's like the only way you actually can be controlled is when you're disconnected, because as you said before, that's when fear affects you, because you don't have the emotional resilience then. Because emotional resilience is very natural when we are connected to the earth and to the divine. And it's like circumstances, even real tragedies can happen in our life, like you were saying, but we know how to face them because we have that connection. So we can't be we can't be controlled from that place.
Yeah. I was listening to I think it was a podcast. I forget who it was, but they said we've got like, we celebrate birth of a baby and we mourn the death of when somebody passes, right? And it's almost flipped. We should be, and I don't agree with this wholeheartedly, but I get the essence of the message. When somebody's born into this world, we should mourn that. It's like, oh my God, what hell lies in front of you? The indoctrination. And then when they pass, we should celebrate. It's like, thank God they got out of here.
Well, it's like we've got this opportunity, and that's the other thing I'd like to talk about, just about this moment in time on this planet, because we have access to a level of consciousness in a way that our grandparents didn't have access to, or maybe a lot fewer of them. But it's like, you were talking a bit about the indigo and star seeds, but also just the fact that there are more people, more conscious people on the planet, more people becoming healthy, happy, and whole, more people taking that step to global contribution and service from love and freedom. And how do you see well, there's two things in this. Firstly, it's just to talk a bit about vibrationally, because you said so beautifully that the antidote to the way the world is now is the well-developed individual, the self-actualized individual, which I loved that. And that's really always spoken to me as well. It's something I feel so passionate about. But I just love you to talk about that from a vibrational perspective. How can one person change the world through being, in that way?
Holy crap. What a question. The thing you got to remember, if you're not thinking for yourself, somebody else is thinking for you. Okay. If you're not creating your reality, it's being created for you. And when I say your reality, I don't mean that you make the computer monitor and the phone and everything else. I mean your response to reality. And that's the fear. We swim. If you turn on, I did an experiment a couple of weeks ago. I just turned on CNN for a few minutes, and it's like, oh my God, it made my skin crawl. I had to turn it off and go out and hug a tree. You know what I mean? It was terrible. It was terrible. So we're inundated with fear 7/24 now because of technology. And when you're in a state of fear, you're stuck in a continuous state of fight, flight, or freeze. That means your adrenal glands are functioning. Here's an interesting thing. Do you know what the vagus nerve is?
Yeah.
Biggest nerve in the body. It is one. If you laid it out on a table, it would blow your mind how big this nerve is. The vagus nerve touches everything in your body. Your brain, your heart, every system, every organ, et cetera, except your adrenal glands. Okay? It does not attach to the adrenal glands. And the reason is because when you have to go into fight, flight, or freeze, the adrenals have to kick in, and they can't be regulated by that vagus nerve, right? So everything shuts down, all your organs to some degree, and there's less energy there for it. The adrenals kick in, and boom, off you go. You run away from a tiger or whatever it is. That's the way it's supposed to work. And this is one of the reasons people, the number one complaint is fatigue. If you look at medical journals, the number one complaint of anybody walking into a doctor's office is fatigue. And the reason there's so much fatigue is we live in a world of 7/24 fear and fear mongering and upset and evil. And it's because those adrenals are just constantly on and on and on and on and on. They're just pouring it out. And that's why people are getting into a state of adrenal burnout. They're so tired, they can't regulate it because those bypass the vagus nerve. So that's one of the big reasons. So thinking for yourself. So when you're stuck in fight or flight or freeze, your mind is not available to you to create or impact the field, or what I call the matrix of this earth. So your mind is not available to impact the matrix. So if you keep 7 billion people in a constant state of fear, they are now not impacting the matrix or the field. It's being created for them. And then they're being impacted by it. So instead of us constantly regenerating and impacting the field, it's impacting us. And that's how we get out of balance. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so you can't actually energetically contribute from that place. You're just kind of like a receiving vessel for whatever's coming at you, right? So just tell me a bit more about that energetic impact of the individual when they are actually in that wholeness on the field of the world or beyond.
Okay, so let's finish up the vagus nerve first. So there's your catch-22. So you're stuck in fight or flight. You're not impacting the field now. The field is impacting you. The catch is the vagus nerve acts as an antenna, and it literally picks up everything around you. You are a receiving station all the time. So all the other shock, panic, and trauma and the fear that's going on around you, your vagus nerve is absorbing it. So you're offline basically because you're in fear. Meanwhile, that vagus nerve is picking up more fear. So when the fight or flight calms down, now that vagus nerve has picked up stuff, and now you got to deal with that because now you're carrying around that junk. So one of the clearings I do is to clear the vagus nerve. If I get people that are stuck like in anxiety, anxiety is a lot of worry about the future, but it's also picking up the stuff around you.
Yeah, so from that state, they're feeling all the collective fear,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And all the collective everything. Yeah.
Yep, it's exactly what's happening. So it's a catch-22. Fight or flight, vagus nerves, or you're not managing it now, you're not using it the way you should, and then it acts as an antenna, picks up more stuff. Then when you begin to get back in your body, now you're picking up all the collective, as you mentioned. Yeah, it's the way. Meanwhile, you should be sitting here having an impact on the field itself. You're a creator. Why wouldn't you have an impact on the field? We should be sitting here, 7 billion of us should be sitting here thinking of love and peace and joy and shifting the energy of the energy field of the earth and pushing the fear out. Love is much, 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 much more powerful. But we don't ever get to that because of our own fear that we're sitting in, swimming in. And then if you've got your own personal shock, your own personal trauma, things that have accumulated in your own field, then that's what you're emanating out into the matrix as well, or out into the field, right? And just like I said with that scalar wave, if you have enmeshed emotions and you're sending that out to the universe, you get back a wonky response because love is enmeshed with something else. And same is true of the matrix of this earth. We should be able to change the world. Yeah.
So it's really stark, isn't it? Because either you're in that kind of porous energy field where everything's coming at you, or you're in a state where you're of connection to love, and you're able to impact your own field and the field of everybody else, including the earth.
Right. If you got all those pieces put back together, like I talked about, in the last session, you got your central channel working, you're connected to the creator, you're connected to your high self, you have life force coming in, and you're able to utilize life force. And life force is the equivalent of gasoline is to a car. You require life force to function, right? And you need to be able to process life force. Life force is coming down that central channel. You take from it as much as you need. You convert some of it into usable physical cellular energy to help run the body. And then you convert the rest of it into other energy to help with your psychic ability, with your ability to create and manifest and so forth. So that's super, super important. I started going down another track. Here's one thing you really want to be cautious of, all right, is the words. You know what the two most powerful words in the world are, or in the universe?
Well, I could take a guess, but I'd rather hear them from you. It's like, let's hear it, Jeffrey.
And I know you know it. It's I am.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Be very, very cautious what follows the words I am. I am scared. I am angry. I am sick. I am this. I am that. I am fill in the blank. Because what you are powerful beyond measure, and you are part of the creator of all that is. And when you say the words I am, whatever follows it, you're creating it. So you go to a doctor and get a diagnosis. I am sick. Boom. Yep, you're sick.
Mm. So. Wow. God. Well, yeah, and I'm with that comes the vibration of the sound too, right? So there's the vibration of the sound of our voice, the vibration of our thoughts, the vibration of our feelings, and this this is all the language that we're interacting with the other fields of all the living beings and the planet and the stars and the rest, right?
All right. What else? Did I answer your question? Last question? I think I lost it.
No, just to I just wanted to ask you, if you could say something about the vibrational impact of somebody who, in their wholeness on the field of the planet in terms of this moment. If you see this as a significant moment on the planet, I mean, if you see this as a transformational moment, or if it's just, for you, just how evolution is, I'd just be interested about that.
No, it's a transformational moment on the planet in regards to it's a teaching piece. If you're able to look at it and see what's really going on, you can see how the powers that be play us, okay? And that's the 24/7 fear. That's the poisons in the food and everything else that weakens us. We're being played, right? So can an individual impact the field? Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe wholeheartedly that it only takes one person. If we get one, like Jesus could shift the planet. We get highly conscious beings back in here. We get highly conscious beings being highly conscious beings. We can shift this planet. And like I said earlier, you're part of the transition team, or you wouldn't have found this video or be on this video or be on this call, right? So, and I'm going to talk about another concept called balancers, right? So a balancer, and this goes back to Hawkins' work, one person at the level of 300, which is reason and understanding, one person at the level of 300 affects 90,000 people just by being here. Just by being on the planet, you're living at 300, you can, you balance people out, right? You balance out the equation of the world. One person at 500 affects 750,000 people. These are rough numbers, but if you get one person functioning at the level of 500, which is love, they kind of negate the negativity of 750,000 people that are running around like Chicken Littles with their head cut off. So we're looking at the globe as a whole. Right? Can we shift the consciousness of this world? Yeah, we can. All we got to do is get enough balancers just being who they came here to be. One person at 600 affects 10 million people. So you get somebody functioning at 1000, you negate or you neutralize the negativity of 10 million people. And one person at 700 affects 70 million. So somebody at the level of enlightenment balances out 70 million people, and neutralizes that. Now, it doesn't, so it's not going to take many of us over here to neutralize over here. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it just goes to show how much stronger love is, yes. Right? So you need a lot less love to actually neutralize fear, because it's that interchange, that almost like a dance between love and fear, right? Which is what's going on the planet. Right. It's like, and because fear, in my opinion, fear doesn't actually want to be here. I just like, it's like, a lot of the time fear wants out, It's just like kind of elected in through the human will. So that's why I think it's easier to release, and why we need less love to release all that much fear.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And fear is not natural. It's just
Yeah.
not natural. I mean, you look.
It's not of this planet, actually. It's because the substance of the planet is made of love.
Yeah. I actually, if you want to go down another rabbit hole, there is a vibration that's being broadcast into this world, and there's two vibrations I see regularly broadcast into the matrix, and it's one of greed, and the other one is fear. Greed and fear. You're absolutely right. It is artificial. Those do not belong to us. Those are not who we are. And I look at my grandchildren, and I see that very clearly, that greed and fear do not exist in those little boys. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's also almost what I see at this moment of the planet is one of restoring the planet just to how it is, and humanity to what it is. I mean, it's just for us to be what we are.
Yeah.
And to to transform that artificial paradigm, and it's that simple, really.
Well, I know for a fact, and I can say this 1000% guarantee, the destructiveness of this world does not apply to you when you remember who you are. The destructiveness of this world does not apply to you when you remember who you are. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You are powerful beyond measure. You're part of the creator of all that is. When you know that, not intellectually, not somebody told you that and it's a cute little sign you've got on your desk, but when it's in your heart, when it's in your bones, this world can't touch you.
Well, I think that's a great place to end. Or we can open it out at this point for questions. But thank you so much. That was just such a, such an inspiring conversation, Jeffrey. Thanks for your work too.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really do. I really do.
Okay, over to you, Beth.
Thank you. Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you, Emma. Jeffrey, I have a couple of questions for you. And one being, you started touching on the levels of consciousness. I'd like you to go a little bit deeper in that. What is that?
Well, that's I think I referred to that in the first session, where that was that's based upon Power versus Force. It's a wonderful book by Dr. David Hawkins, whom I had the privilege, and I mean privilege, to meet. And I sat at his feet for a workshop he gave. I'll never forget those days. That man was amazing. And he's left us, but he has a concept that everything in the world is directly related to your level of consciousness. And he has a scale, and the scale is 0 to 1,000. And 0 is where you find the energy of fear, shame, and guilt. 200 is courage. 300 is, I'm going to cheat here and look. 300 is willingness and optimism. 400 is reason, 500 is love, 600 is peace, 700 to 1,000 is enlightenment. And that's where you'll find people like Christ and Buddha and Krishna coming in at around 1,000. And that's just a way of measuring, but your consciousness is, it directly impacts who you are. It directly impacts how you view the world and the view of reality that you have. And everything affects you. The books you read, the clothes you wear, the movies you watch, the food you eat, everything can either detract from your consciousness or add to your consciousness. And so one of the things I think, people often ask me, how do I move forward, right? How do I move in this world? How do I heal myself? And you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention to what you eat and put in your mouth. Okay. So stay away from processed foods, because that has a negative vibration to it. Stay away from chemicals. Try to eat organic and as pure and close to the earth as possible. Drink only filtered water. Mountain Dew is not a conscious drink, so I would avoid that. Coca-Cola is not a conscious drink. I'm not knocking it if you like it, but it's not serving you. So that's what the levels of consciousness are about.
So what are balancers? Because you talked about that before, balancers.
Well, I mentioned that a few minutes ago. Balancers are people who are getting to their level of consciousness. So if you came in at 600, or you came in at 700, and you came in at 800, you came in at 1,000. And I have clients in all those ranges, okay? And people go, oh, Jesus Christ was a balancer. Obviously, one Jesus Christ balanced hundreds of millions of people. And so a balancer is somebody who's done their work, who has their field clear, in my definition, and who is living day to day, moment to moment, and that at that level of consciousness, and therefore they're balancing the negativity of the world. And you get more people just doing. If we just do that, if we just get the millions of people who came here with high levels of consciousness that are operating at 100 or 200 or 300, if we just get them to be the 600, the 700, the thousands that they came in here at, the world would change. The world would change. It would just shift. One day we'd wake up and things would be more peaceful. And the systems of the world would begin to disintegrate. The stuff that's held together through greed and fear and all these other things we talk about, they would just fall away. Because like Emma said, which is genius, fear is not natural, or it's not normal. And so we need more balancers in this world. We need people who just are living what they came here to live into. On top of that, these balancers, quite naturally, they begin to discover their mission, their purpose, the reason for being here. So their one purpose is just to be here and be a highly conscious being. And then they begin to do things like create soup kitchens, knit Afghans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's even bonus. That's above and beyond. So.
Thank you. Now I'd like to open up the panel and raise your hand. Does everybody know how to raise your hand if you have a question? And raise your hand if you have a question. Heather. Heather. There we go.
Yeah.
Take your, there you go.
I would like to ask a healing network. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
About the what? You cut out.
Your healing network.
Oh, okay. All right. I have that's a good question. So here, I'll give you an example. I'll show you what I'm healing network is something I've made available to people that have worked with me. Because we get them to a level of consciousness where they're functional, they're out there doing what they came here to do, and then they need a little bit of support after that, but they don't need to talk to me. You don't need to see me every day. I don't want that. But also at the same token, you don't take a shower once in your life and go, I'm clean, I never have to take another shower again. We live in a kind of a dirty world right now, and it's good to periodically clear the field and to keep that negative energy at bay and to clean it out. So what I do is I have a group of people. I don't even know that I have to draw this. I can explain it. I have a group of people in what I call a healing network that I work with first thing in the morning. I check into the vibration of the earth. I check into what's going on. And I do clearings on them as a group. Okay, so it's not to go at them for specific issues. That's what the sessions are for. The healing network is that general day-to-day cleansing of what needs to be addressed. So it might be just maybe if the Schumann resonant has shifted, we adjust their body to the Schumann resonance. A lot of times I will readjust the molecules of the water of the body. And this is a cool secret or a thing I've just discovered, which is really neat. You're 70% water, and the earth is 70% water. You think that's just an accident? That's on purpose. And the reason that we're so much water is because the connection between us and the creator, the way we communicate, the connecting tissue is the water in the body, okay? And I found the frequency is 7 hertz. If the water molecules of your body are at 7 hertz, you can better feel the creator. You're much more open. You're like, you just feel, sometimes I can even feel the vibration of the creator. But here's the catch. We exist in electromagnetic fields. We're an electromagnetic field. The part of our body-mind field complex is an electromagnetic field. And we exist in other electromagnetic fields, such as cellular towers, wireless routers, all the garbage and the pollution that's going on in the world. All that stuff tends to speed up the hertz of the water molecule of the body. And so you'll be at 8 or 9 or 10 as far as the hertz go. And then people will complain to me, I can't feel the creator. Well, you just adjust the hertz of the water molecule to 7 and boom, they begin to feel the creator again. So it's important. So a rabbit hole, sorry. So in this healing network, what I do is I check those kinds of things. So at least twice a week, I readjust everybody's molecules in their water to 7 hertz just to keep them going. You know, and so it's just a nice way to keep the field clean and give you that daily energetic shower on a group basis. It doesn't take me a lot of time, but I do put a lot of effort into what I do every day. So that's what the healing network is. So it's one to many. I can clear 40 or 400 or 4,000 just as easy as I can clear one person. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And Gary has a question.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Jeff, is that 7 hertz based on the Schumann resonance?
Well, there are multiple Schumann resonances of the Earth. There's multiple frequencies, but that is the one that the military used to set their radios to back in World War II.
Okay.
So, but yes, that 7 hertz that's the core. That's the one you want. You know, there are multiple Schumann resonances.
So I've read a lot about it being 7.83. Is there a big difference in those numbers, or is 7 just an average?
7 is the frequency of the creator. So.
Okay. Okay, that's good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Lisa.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. You know, I know you've talked a bit about this, so just to clarify and maybe bring it all in, what are the daily things that you think are the most important that we could start to do right now? You know, I know you have talked about this a little bit, but just to kind of clarify it and maybe just highlight the things, the daily practices that you think are the most important for us to focus on just to get started right away.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the most important thing you can do, the absolute most important thing to do is joy. Do something that brings you joy. And you heard me refer earlier to I put in my calendar my sunshines. And my sunshines are either reading, something that brings me joy, meditating, walking in the woods, spending time with my wife. Those are all things that bring me joy. So joy, that's how you change the field, is through joy. It really is. So let's go a little bit further. So you need to get your health back, right? So you need to get your health back from a physical standpoint, a mental standpoint, emotional standpoint, and spiritual standpoint. And so you need to pay attention to all those. Are you working out? Are you walking? You don't have to lift weights. You don't have to run a marathon every day, but walk. Walking is the best thing you could ever do. Movement and flow. Our field is all about movement and flow. And so, like I said, life force is to a car like gasoline is to an engine. It's got to come in, you use it, it goes out. It has to come in and go out, come in and go out. Same thing for you. You have to be moving, you have to be flowing. So never get stagnant. In other words, don't sit in front of a television and just veg out. That's one of the worst things that you could do. So I tell people quite often, first you got to heal yourself. You got to heal yourself. You got to work on yourself. This goes back to self-care, self-love, self-empowerment, and then you rest. Okay. Don't be afraid to rest. Lay on the couch, get you a cot or a hammock, or lay on the patio and rest. We think we have to be up and doing something all the time. And then you do your work, whatever that is. And the more you do this cycle, you heal, rest, and then do your work. Heal, rest, and do your work. That's where those next steps get revealed to you. So heal, rest, do your work. And the biggest thing is the forgiveness, right? So check in with yourself and make sure you're forgiving yourself. Forgive yourself, forgive others, forgive those in charge, i.e. politicians or whoever, and forgive. So, and then that lets you get at that joy. And so it's a continuous cycle. Just keep working on those things, and you'll be amazed at how much healing you can incur in your own life.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, next, Judy had some questions.
Early on, I didn't realize until you started talking that this was sort of titled Beyond Suffering. But early on, when you were talking, I was reminded of a quote that I read somewhere a long time ago that I have loved. Goethe, who was a German philosopher, and you read about him a lot. He said, "Men are born, they suffer, they die." That's how he summed up humanity in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're a human, I could buy that. But you're not a human. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. We didn't come here to play small. We didn't come here not to contribute. We didn't come here to just suffer and die. We came here to make a contribution, change the world, and then leave in a joyous fashion.
Well, before I knew I was a spiritual being having a human experience, I thought that did kind of sum up life on this planet.
Yeah, I totally get it. Because that's part of that map, the map I was talking about. That is the map. You just laid it out. Those 3 steps is the map. Still somebody's mind of reality. Yeah, I get it. Totally get it. But you don't believe that now, do you?
Not at all. No way, Jose.
Okay. All right.
I'm so glad you guys are talking about balancers. I recently have acquired this book and I've just poked around in it some, but I haven't really read it. But I remember being in a workshop and the facilitator was talking about how, the figures that you gave, Jeff, a balancer can, offset this much negativity.
Mm-hmm.
How can we maximize our ability to bring balance into the world as individuals?
As individuals, is get your field as clear as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and get as much of consciousness in your field as possible. Be the person you came here to be. So if you're a 600 or a 700 or an 800, get there. Do whatever it takes to get there. And I gave you some really cool tips.
You did.
And if you can't get there, then you need to call me and start working with me to get there. Now, I'm not doing this I don't need more business, okay? But if you can't quite get there, then there is something broken or shattered in the field. Repair that, and then boom, consciousness rolls in. You become the person you came here to be. So,
very good.
but a lot of it can be done by what I just said. It's like get your health back, work on yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Do things that give you joy. Spend time by yourself for yourself. All those things work. They're magnificent. And then you're the creator. You're part of the creator. So, and remember that. Know that. Work on that part until you feel it in your bones. And when I say I'm part of the creator, I don't have an arrogance about that. It's not ego. I'm part of that from which I came.
That's fact.
Yeah, it's fact. Yeah. What else?
Next, we have Carrie. Carrie Ann.
Ooh, okay. Is that can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yay! Okay. Oh, this is just thank you so much. This is it's so juicy and so delicious, and thank you both. It was super nourishing, and
We went to school together.
yeah. And gosh, I wanted to refer to something you said really powerful about the I am and the statements that we make. And I grew up in a tradition of quite a religious environment of almost pushing down what you're not really experiencing, so that you rise above everything, and you're transcending the actual experience. So a lot of my times when anger would come up, or the things I would feel would come up, they weren't validated, they weren't, and so now I find I'd be really interested to hear about the fine line between affirming the positive, affirming the truth of who we really are, and acknowledging these experiences that we have, which we call negative, but they're just part of our experience. And I'd love to hear a little bit around that. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, let's talk about the anger and not being affirmed there first. I get that quite often with a lot of people. It's like I'm not allowed to be angry, or I don't allow myself to be angry. Anger is valuable. Anger is very valuable. Anger gives you focus. Anger can move you forward very powerfully in your life. Every emotion we have is meant to be experienced. And in this world, it's like, we're taught as children, well, don't get angry, just they'll make you go in another room or punish you or put you in a corner or something like that. That's part of the conditioning. So that's part of finding who we are, is allowing ourselves to be angry. I do a lot of work. I have a lot of protocols around what I call mind. I refer to your field as multiple components. It's the body, mind, field complex. And when I do mind clearings on somebody, I warn them. I'm religious about that. I say, be careful what you ask for, because you're going to get it now, because we've restored your ability to use the mind. And mind is the way you move energy into matter. Mind is energy into matter. And mind will, I always get people reporting back all kinds of weird things. Look, you don't have to focus positively on everything. It's impossible to be positive all the time, but it's your predominant thought, your predominant thinking process. What predominates your focus? What are you focused on? What is your I am? I know I am happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive all the time. I am that. And if I'm not, I have to remind myself I am, and then I can shift my focus. So emotions have appliance, they have a place. You need to experience them, not push them down, not shove them down. And they're all valuable. They're up there telling you something. They're telling you something's not right. They're telling there's something needs to be focused on. They're telling you something, there needs to be a line drawn in the sand. You need a boundary or something. Every emotion has value. And then focus on being happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive. And just keep telling yourself that. You're a creator. You'll eventually find that your field will begin to clear the stuff that doesn't let you be happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive. But not being that is part of the illusion. It's the illusion. We're indoctrinated into an illusion. And healing is not about making the illusion better. It's about releasing or getting out of the illusion. Am I answering your question? Did I answer your question?
Sorry, you cut out for a second.
Oh.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any more questions? Okay, Jeff, is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah. Okay. So just one thing. Your unrest and dissatisfaction with the status quo. Okay. Your unrest and dissatisfaction with the status quo. The bullshit that we're constantly bombarded with, the crap they're feeding us about everything that's going on, everything that we're being told, it's your marker. It's your marker as to whether or not you're on the correct spiritual path. You need to pay attention to your unrest and dissatisfaction. Okay, that's my advice. And with that, I guess I'm done.
Hang on, Emma, is there anything else that you would like to add?
I just want to reaffirm how much stronger love is than fear, and for everybody to remember that, and that we're so much bigger than what we're told. We're so much smaller than, and just to have some fun with this experience.
That is beautiful. Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you and honor each person that showed up on the call, and the spirits that are with us, the ones that we have lost as well. You are a treasure. Don't ever forget who you are and what an amazing field of balancers. Until next time.